Okay, great. Let's make a start. Just bear with me a second. I'm just going to stop my video purely for my bandwidth. So there we go. Okay, great. So this morning, we're going to have a talk through our Cloud SIEM enterprise solution. There's some fundamental changes that are bringing around a need for a better SIEM product. So first of those initially really are kind of cloud adoption. A lot of organizations are currently in a digital transformation. They're moving their enterprise data into the cloud. And unfortunately, a lot of legacy SIEM platforms were kind of designed to be based as an on-premise solution, to be able to ingest from on-premise devices such as syslog and so on. And they don't really have the ability to look at cloud sources, let alone the capability to be able to correlate across those cloud sources. Additionally, as well, from a threat landscape perspective, moving everything into the cloud has now kind of shifted that attack surface. No longer do we have threat actors, kind of targeting my on-prem environment, through sending sending emails with malware and viruses attached and so on. They're actually looking at ways to be able to get access to the cloud. Looking to compromise VPN connections, and additionally, looking for unsecured data within the cloud. And on top of that, of course, we're throwing more data sources into our security operations teams. As we move to the cloud, we're bringing in more logging solutions. And unfortunately, that's not a human scale solution there. We know that we have a problem recruiting people into the security industry. So we end up generating more and more noise into our security teams and creating that alert fatigue, that common phrase that we're all familiar with. So what we need to do is we need to modernize security operations with a cloud-based SIEM solution, something that has that visibility across the cloud, something that has the ability to correlate across all of my sources, but at the same time, a capability to distill a lot of that alert fatigue, the signal noise, down to more manageable scales. So this is where the Sumo Logic Cloud Enterprise solution, Cloud SIEM Enterprise solution, kind of differentiates from those legacy solutions. What we essentially do is we take the high volume of alerts that comes through and we automatically bring those down into a more manageable solution using something we call insights. It does a lot of the automation around that investigation phase. It brings in all of the relevant signals that I need into a more actionable insight. Additionally, as well, the Cloud SIEM Enterprise is a multi-tenant dynamic scalability. No longer do I have to think about, can I still send all of my log volume in? Is the platform going to be able to support everything I send in there? Do I need to worry myself about how many users are using the SIEM platform at any time, or what kind of searches and dashboards are they running? Additionally, as well, we're kind of looking for a platform now where I can centralize all of my security log management, but also not just from a security perspective. The ability to bring in IT operations logs, development operations logs, have it as a central consolidation point for all of those logs as well. Deep search capabilities, using highly efficient methods to be able to do that. Gives me that scale to look across all of my platforms. And then also to have cloud native collection, to be able to pick events and send them in from new cloud sources such as AWS, GCP, Azure, that kind of thing. But also still have that capability to bring in my native security sources as well if I need to. And then finally, this last point here, one of the key things is rapid time to value. What I don't want to do is I don't want to have a SIEM solution where it's going to take 6 to 12 months to be able to, get it to a workable state. I need to be able to get a SIEM solution, literally kind of plug it in quotes, and have it showing me value within a short period of time. So Sumo Logic has multiple kind of vectors here that we can leverage our SIEM solutions. If I'm looking for something just to do audit and compliance, we have that covered. Our secure platform is backed by multiple attestations. Those run from the ISO standards through to SOC 2 Type 2. So you can be assured that any data that you send into our platform is secure. It's encrypted both in transit and in rest. Rapid time to value, the ability to bring in my data sources as quickly as possible and start to make sense of the information I'm being shown. And then also added into that, the flexibility of licensing. Again, I don't want to be restricted on what I log into my platform because the cost of ingestion is too high. Moving across, we start to leverage security analytics. I need abilities for deep searching and foundational correlation across those sources. The ability to be able to enrich and visualize my data. And again, there we're talking about being able to have visibility across multiple cloud sources. So instead of just having a dashboard for AWS or just having a dashboard for Azure, I can have a dashboard that's looking for visibility across all of those. And then I can apply threat intelligence across all of those sources at the same time. Our security analytics platform has things like outlier detection. We're looking for anomalous points there, things that are outside of our normal baseline of activity. But then the capability to reduce logs down as well, making a comparison between similar log types. So instead of having to look through thousands of logs, I can bring those down to a handful of logs that are all looking pretty similar. But again, still have the capability to search across all of those if I need to. And then finally, the Cloud SIEM Enterprise, which is the product we're going to have a demonstration of today, that has the ability to provide continuous correlation. What do I mean by continuous correlation? So in that sense, I don't have to think about endless correlation rules, different scenarios. The Cloud SIEM Enterprise product automatically correlates across all of my sources. And we'll go into that aspect a little bit deeper. I also need to have some element of analyst workflow. The simplicity of being able to reassign insights and incidents within the platform. And if necessary, to be able to push those out to third-party solutions, such as other ITSM solutions. We could be talking about ServiceNow, Jira, Slack, those kind of integrations. And also additionally, if I'm using a third-party SOAR product, the ability to be able to push that out in an easy-to-use workflow is also vitally important. And then one of the key things there, the final stage, is the automation of that incident prioritization, alert, and triage stage. So instead of having one alert and then having to spend a couple of hours to build the picture of what's happened around that particular entity, I now have a capability with our Cloud SIEM Enterprise platform to be able to bring all of those relevant signals together. So this is a very brief snapshot of what our Cloud SIEM Enterprise product looks like. Here in the top left-hand corner, I can see my records coming in. Those records are my raw security logs. They could be coming from anywhere from my AWS cloud, my on-premise firewalls, my email gateways, my endpoint security, EDR solutions. The next step down is signals. And signals are a set of rules that are being generated in the background. So out of the box, we have somewhere between 450 and 500 rules. And those cover the majority of the key and the core security products. But I can go in and create custom rules if I need to. And once again, those could be a one-to-one mapping. A Palo Alto firewall alert could generate one of those rules. The rule could also be a base correlation that says I'm looking for multiple failed logins followed by a success. And eventually those rules are clustered together using the Insight clustering engine. And this is the key thing here. This is that automation of that investigation phase. So you can see in this particular example, we've gone from 2 million raw events down to 5 insights. And those are the things that as a security analyst, I need to focus my day-to-day work on. Okay, and with that, I'm going to jump across now into the live platform. Okay, so here we are. This is the Cloud SIEM Enterprise product. This is what we call our heads-up display. So again, we've kind of just talked a little bit about the numbers we have in this top corner here. So I have 193,000 raw logs that are coming into the platform. From those raw logs, I'm generating 408 signals. And from those 408 signals, we're distilling those down into 24 insights. And those insights are high fidelity, actionable things that I need to go and investigate. So my current view here is set over 7 days. Okay, if I wanted to bring that down to something within a more recent time frame, such as 24 hours, you can see how the whole dashboard changes to reflect those numbers. I'll just run you through a couple of other key things here within the heads-up display. So on my left-hand panel, I have some insight metrics. So my detection average there, that's telling me from the point of my first signal firing to my last signal firing to create an insight, my average time for detection there is 13 hours. The second value is my mean time to respond. If I just drop this back out to 7 days, you'll see how that value dynamically changes. So average time to respond, that's from the point when my insight is generated to the point where I've set it to in progress, is 1 day. And my average time to remediate, so that's from the time I've set my insight to in progress to the point where I've closed it, that's a 2-day average window. Okay, so those are kind of some of the key metrics around SOC capabilities that are quite a valuable thing to be able to track within security operations. Underneath that panel there, I can see my insights that have been generated in progress or closed over my time period. So I can see there were 13 new generated in the time periods. 1 is in progress and 10 were closed. And again, these are averages over that period. And then finally, my chart underneath again gives me that created and closed view. So moving across to the center of the display, again, I'm going to just drop my window back down to 24 hours. So we're looking at what's happened since yesterday. So in my central radar view here, the outer ring is reflecting those records that have come through. In a normal environment, I would expect to see some peaks and troughs here. So for example, key login times 9 a.m., key log off times 5 p.m. Midday activity tends to increase as users use the internet, that kind of thing. And then I'd expect to see this tailing off a little bit during the silent hours, weekends, that kind of thing. My inner ring here, these are my signals that are being generated over this time period. So again, it's kind of natural to expect some ebbs and flows in the generation of those. And then finally, the colored triangles in the center, those are my insights that have been generated. They'll be color coded dependent on the status. So red will be new, green will be closed, amber are in progress, and anything that's showing as white means it's reassigned to a custom team. And then finally, the last 2 panels on this heads up display. So here is a quick snapshot of my latest insight that's been generated. So I have my insight number and name here. The number is sequential. Okay, so the next one generated would be 20434, for example. The name of the insight is reflected from the MITRE ATT&CK framework stages. So each of my signals that constitutes this insight have different stages in the attack framework. So I can instantly see here that I have exfiltration stages. I've got an unknown. I've got a credential access. Okay. Within this panel, here's my entity that we're tracking. So entities from a Cloud SIEM Enterprise perspective can be a host name, an IP address, a username, MAC address, that kind of thing. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we track those entities when we take a deeper look at an insight. Finally, here in this panel, I can see my duration. So this is the dwell time of this particular insight that's been generated. Here's my severity score. And then the radar cross view here, I have my, my timeline running on the horizontal axis from left to right. And then on the vertical axis, the severity of the signals that have been generated will determine where they appear. So anything with a severity score of 0 to 5 appears below the line, and anything with a severity score of 5 to 10 appears above the line. And the last panel here is a quick snapshot of what's been happening. So any new insights that have been generated, any of my analyst activity. So here, for example, I can see where I actually went in and I reassigned something into in progress this morning. And that kind of summarizes there what our main heads up display is, okay? So let's take a look at what an insight is and how it's generated. So as we bring up this main heads up, this main insight panel here, this is what we call our Kanban view board. And this is where the start of my, my ease of use, my analyst workflow begins, okay? If I want to assign one of those new insights in that left-hand panel to another team, could be my tier 2 analysts, my tier 3 analysts, and these are all customizable. You know, I can have dedicated teams up here. I can have individual team members. For me now to just reassign one of these to in progress or to a dedicated team, I simply drag it across and release it. Then you'll see it's refreshed, and this has now been assigned to my tier 2 team. So let's take a bit more of a dive in now and have a look at how an insight is created. So here's my insight view. And I touched a little bit on entities, and that's how we track across our clustering for the insights. So essentially, anytime a signal is generated that contains an entity, and again, that entity could be an IP address, could be a username, host name, and so on, and there's a severity score attached to that particular rule, then that rule begins to get tracked across the activity. And by default, we can go back 14 days. That gives me the capability there to be able to pick up low and slow attacks within my environment. So for example, if I was going to compromise an organization by initially sending in a phishing email, I would probably sit and monitor the email account for that particular user. And over a period of 7 days, I might start to build a picture about who that user is, what's their job function, who do they collaborate with. And then after 7 days, I might use those credentials then to start having a poke around in your environment, okay? I might start to explore the file shares you have access to. I might start to look at any database activity or access that you have access to. So like I said, out of the box, we can go back 14 days, but that window is customizable. If I wanted to have a bigger window to be able to do my low and slow checking against, then I can increase that accordingly. So in this particular insight view here, again, some of this information is repeated over here on the left-hand panel. So I have my name of this insight. I can do my my status here, management. You know, again, from this point, I could sign it to in progress. I can close it, sign it to a dedicated person. Here's my severity score. This is the entity involved. In this case, it's an IP address. And then I can see how many signals actually make up this particular insight. And I can see when it was last seen. And here's my dwell time as well. So the dwell time, again, is the point from the very first signal to the last signal where it then pushed through the threshold to generate this as an insight. At the top here, I've got that same kind of radar view. So my timeline is running from left to right. Here I can see my signal types and their severity points according to this, this horizontal axis. We have a number of ways of generating an insight. They could be from those rules that I mentioned earlier, those 450 to 500 out of the box rules. I could have an anomaly detection here. For example, if I'm picking up the fact that a user is logging in to email from 2 different locations, you know, could be Nigeria and the US within an hour, then that's detected as anomalous activity in possible travel. Okay, so I could have an anomalous trigger in here as well. Additionally, I could have a threat intelligence signal in here. It could be that we've automatically looked up a file hash against an external source such as VirusTotal, and that's brought in a threat intelligence signal for me as well. So from an analyst perspective now, what I can do is I can start to scroll down and look at these particular signals that constitutes this insight and start to build my picture of what's happened. Very quickly here, as I'm looking through, I can see my first signal generated was a user receiving an email with a phishing link. And this particular signal has come from my Proofpoint email device. As I scroll down, then the next thing I'm correlating, or the next thing I'm seeing here, is a checkpoint alert to say that a malicious file was downloaded. So already I'm building that picture. My user has received an email, they've clicked on the link. Next alert I have here is from CrowdStrike saying that the file has been detected on the endpoint. So again, you know, this is starting to build that picture. My users downloaded the file and they've probably executed it or detonated it on my endpoint. Okay. And then finally, again, it's the second CrowdStrike alert here. If I want to look at these in more detail, I can just click on the actual signal itself. My view here is now telling me what the expression is that was used to create this rule. And again, you know, the ability to create custom rules is really straightforward. The expression logic is very simple. It will preemptively start to fill in as I go through to create my expression. And again, some of this key information is repeated in this signal for me. So the severity level of this signal itself, what the attack stage is according to the MITRE attack framework. Again, here's my entity. If I want to go and look at the actual rule that has triggered this, I can click through, go direct to that rule itself. And here's some of the useful things I certainly find as a security analyst. I can start to look at the details of this particular signal. So I see the typical things within a SIEM platform. Okay, here are my extracted fields. However, what I have the ability to do is to favorite any of these fields here now, and they appear up here in this header. So for example, if I want to add the entropy score for that particular domain, you know, I can add those values into the header of this particular signal. So now if I minimize this back down, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong view. Ignore that. As I scroll down through here, I can take a quick glance here and I can see, you know, what was the action taken? What was the URL involved? Who was the user? What was the entropy score? And I can do that without having to drill down further if I need to. If I wanted to go back now, have a look at the next one. Here's my checkpoint. Again, I can click on this particular signal. Again, it's showing me the logic here that's triggering behind this. What I now have the ability to do here as well, I have an external IP address. So we do an ASN lookup for every single IP that comes through, or every external IP address. I can do some actions from here. If I want to be able to go now and look up this IP address against something like, you know, VirusTotal, anything else, I can just click on the link. It'll open up a new tab for me and then take me out and show me the information for that particular IP. I don't have to copy the IP address, go and open a new tab, go to VirusTotal and then paste that IP address in. And I can also do that elsewhere as well. So if I've got file hashes here, okay, again, what I can do now is I can actually go and do a quick lookup here for this file hash to VirusTotal. And you can see my information's coming back here saying that, you know, this is known malicious in 40 of 66 scan engines. So again, from a workflow perspective, you know, it's minimizing the amount of time I have to spend to triage this particular incident. Again, as I come back, I can do the same with the other activities there. To put this into perspective, if I was looking at a traditional legacy SIEM platform, I might get an alert come through to say that a user has received an email with a phishing link. Traditionally there, I would take that alert. I would have to make a note of the username and then start to do some pivoting and drill downs within the platform. And it could take me anywhere up to 2 hours to actually determine the full story of what's happened here. You know, from the point that the user has clicked on the link to the point where the file has been downloaded and executed on the endpoint. But with the Cloud SIEM Enterprise product, I've been able to achieve that literally within a couple of minutes. So the key thing there is, instead of having a 2-hour window where this malicious file could be doing something in my environment, I've now minimized that down to literally 5 minutes before I can determine that I need to quarantine the endpoint. At this stage here, I've done that quick investigation. I've determined that this is a true incident. I can now push that off into another external ticketing system. Like I said, it could be ServiceNow. I could send it off to a Slack channel, into Jira. I could now send this to Demisto to run a playbook to go and do those kind of activities around quarantining the endpoint, forcing a password change for a user, that kind of thing. If I want to have a look at signals themselves that are being generated, again, I can go in here. I have the ability here now as well to actually do some threat hunting at this level. If I want to search for a particular user and IP address, or I just want to filter these and say, actually, I want to see everything with a severity that is greater or equal to 7. I can just quickly jump in here, and now I'm looking at all of these higher severity alerts. As a quick point here, you can see we have AWS guard duty alerts coming through. And those would be part of insights if there is activity tracked with this particular entity across my other sources. Okay. If I want to take a look at all of my entities, so every time an entity generates a signal within the platform, it creates an entry. So I can go in and have a look at an entity here. If I take this IP address or this user here, for example, I can drill down further and gain more information on this. So I can see every time this IP address has generated a signal or an insight previously. If I come back to my user, again here, all of the activity that this particular user has been associated with. And I can click on any of these and it'll take me through to that signal itself. Additionally, within the platform here, I have the capability to ingest threat intelligence. If I have external paid for solutions, such as anomaly detection or something else, I can add those in. There could be anything from a CSV file through to a Stix or taxi feed. I have things like match list capability. So if I have vulnerability scanners within my environment, I might want to put those into a match list to suppress anything being generated from those. We know that those are notoriously noisy within a SIEM platform. I can do file analysis here at a network level. As part of our product, we have Zeek network sensors that you can deploy to your environment, and they will bring back that kind of net flow visibility. And again, that's used across all of my correlations. I'm quickly going to show you how rules are made up. And again, creating custom rules here is really straightforward. If I pick one of these, one of my colleagues has created, for example, you can see here now how a rule is created within our platform. So my actual rule expression is based on SQL query language, okay? But like I said, as I type in here and I want to add other values, which is, there we go, I get a set of drop-down boxes, so I don't need to type everything out. I can just pick my value from these drop-down values. When I create the signal, I can give it specific names. I can put templates into my name. So when this particular rule is created, it'll add the value in there. That could be the username adding into the name of the rule. It could be an IP address. It could be populating a description from whatever my source vendor is. Every rule I can associate here with a stage in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And then I can set severity levels either statically or dynamically. Dynamically is passing through from my security source on the other end. If I set a static value here, I can choose anything between 1 and 10 as a constant, and just use the sliding bar there to set that value. Some other important things here as well within a SIEM platform is the ability for me to be able to create these rules in a prototype mode, which means I'm using live data to validate my rule against. But this rule is not going to actively start creating insights until I'm comfortable that it's doing what it should be. When I'm happy with that functionality, I come back in, uncheck the box, and then it starts to work in my live environment. Okay. Again, within the same window, I can look at the history of changes to this rule. I can look at what insights this rule has generated, and then all of the signals created from it as well. And once again, from an analyst point of view, in a traditional SIEM platform, I may have had to pivot out to 2 or 3 different locations within the platform to gather all of this information. And last thing here, I have a very quick view of when and how many signals have been generated from this particular rule. When it comes to different rule types, I have multiple options. I can do a match rule, a one-to-one mapping. If this Palo Alto rule fires, then create a match rule. I can do a threshold rule here where I'm looking for a number of records within a set time window. Chain ruling, the ability to piece together several different rules. And then finally, the capability there for aggregating different conditions, okay? But it's worth pointing here, like I said at the very beginning, I don't have to think about endless scenarios here of correlation. The whole platform does that for me. As long as I have signals being generated, it's going to track that entity and that severity score. And when they burst through the threshold, default out of the box is 12 points. It then creates that insight for me. So instead of coming back to this screen, where we talked initially about having 52 signals here in a 24-hour period, I don't need to investigate those 52 signals. Those have been distilled down into 4 key high fidelity insights that I need to action and investigate. So that pretty much kind of sums up, what our Cloud SIEM Enterprise product is able to do. We still have things like full RBAC capability. I can assign roles and users to different things. I can customize fully my context actions. So I can do those lookups against other external sources. If I'm bringing in Active Directory, I have the ability to enrich my Active Directory events. So when I look at a specific user, for example, then it would show me the group the user was in, that kind of thing. And then additionally, on top of that, we can integrate with any other product that's able to take a web feed. I integrate with nearly all of the ITSM ticketing systems that are out there. If I'm running third-party SOAR products, I can integrate with most of those without any problems at all. Okay. So that kind of sums up our Cloud SIEM Enterprise product. The last thing I want to do is to leave you with a QR code here. So this will allow you to kind of go and have a look at our platform and a little bit more in depth. You can request a demo. You can download a solution brief there as well if you wanted to. And yeah, that kind of sums up the solution. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and listen to our webinar. Thank you.